Hello, everybody. This is my mini lesson on grammar and sentence boundaries. And I'm gonna, hey folks, thanks to those who attended our weekly workshop. I know it was our first one, and we'll offer others in the future. Sadly, I neglected to record, so I am going to try to recreate my grammar lesson for you all. This is normally a participatory event. And so I'm going to attempt to be all of you at the same time. That's not going to work. But I'm going to explain the process, and then maybe you can play on your own. So here's the deal. We made this what we call a word hoard or collection of words to practice understanding parts of speech. So in the categories we have nouns. Nouns are persons, places, or things. They're solid objects typically, although some things can be made into a noun form like love or truth. But typically we think of nouns as physical things in the world. Verbs are, as you know, action words. They are things that are, show doing. Adjectives describe a noun. You can have a beautiful beach, for example. Adverbs describe an action. You can run quietly. Prepositions are trickier. They have to do with time and place. And one way to remember prepositions is anything an airplane can do in relationship to a cloud is a preposition. An airplane can go to a cloud, or through a cloud, or beneath a cloud, or above a cloud, or around a cloud. Also, it has to do with time, before, after, during, while, etc. But there are some other prepositions like because, when, while, of, as, for. Those are preposition words too, and we use them all the time. And we can use prepositional phrases, because something, while something, behind something, to start a sentence or to conclude a sentence. So those are words we use often. Conjunctions are words that help us connect two elements, two or more elements, or disconnect them. So for, and, not, but, or, yet, so are the conjunctions we use most commonly, and we call that collection the fanboys. For, and, not, but, or, yet, so. Keep that in mind. Articles are words that are used in English. The, a, an are often used to introduce a noun. So a coffee mug, the perfume, let's see, an ice cream flavor. Those are the articles. The reason you use an instead of an a is if the noun begins with another vowel, like an ice cream flavor or an inauguration day, which is what I'm recording this. So the goal here was to first understand the parts of speech, and then we're going to make funky, funny sentences. And they can be anything at all as long as you use only the words that the students here gathered. Now you can make sentences yourselves using these words. So for example, you could say, the clumsy rabbit carefully ate ice cream beneath Will Smith. It doesn't have to make logical sense. It just has to make grammatical sense. So I'd like you to play with that. Just do this on your own. Imagine you're in the class and you're doing this and you're making goofy sentences. The only thing you can change, you cannot add to the collection of words, but you can change the verb tense as I just did. I changed eat to ate. Or I could say, Will Smith eats ice cream calmly with a scrawny bear. Okay, so I could use the present tense. Or the ing is pretty crazy. It's be hard to do. But running casually, the candle painted the coffee mug. See, I'm playing with all this stuff. So pretend I'm not here. Make a couple of sentences. I'll give you a minute. Okay, imagine I'm giving you a minute. You can pause the video now. Come back with your sentences. All right, you ready? Okay, let's pretend like you did that. Here are some sentences written by some of your classmates. Will Smith jumped above the bald Donald Trump. The cat jumped toward the long beach. The scrawny cat ate shiny ice cream. Donald Trump jumped clumsily above the coffee mug. Will Smith and the rabbit casually slept beside the candle. The cat and the rabbit danced and sang toward Disneyland. Awesome. Each of these sentences has a subject and a predicate. A subject is the actor, the person or thing doing the action. The predicate is the action, and it can be more than just the main verb, but we need one or more. You can have a complex subject, but we need a subject and a main verb in every sentence. You can't have more than that, just one of each. So here we have Will Smith jumped above the bald Donald Trump. We have two nouns. We have two people. But who's doing the action? You're going to say Will Smith, right? Because he's the one who's jumping. The bald Donald Trump is just sitting there. He is receiving the action, but he is not doing the action. So let's identify the subject. We're going to say subjects are yellow. What is the main verb? We're going to say jumped, right? And here's what's groovy about a cool sentence like this. If you just have the subject and the predicate, we can stand alone. So Will Smith jumped. You can stop there, and that's a sentence. This completes the picture for us, but that is a complete sentence. If we took away Will Smith and just said jumped over the bald Donald Trump, you'd say, well, who did that? Right? We're missing the subject. Or Will Smith above the Donald Trump, you'd say, well, what about that? What did he do above the bald Donald Trump? We need those parts of a sentence for it to make sense, but we need only one. So let's go through all of these. The cat is the subject, right? And again, jumped, great verb, great action, fantastic. Oops, my bad. The cat is supposed to be yellow. Okay, the cat jumped toward the long beach. Again, the scrawny cat, see these things modify the verb, or the noun rather. The scrawny cat, that could be the whole subject, ate. Okay, you see how this is working, right? Okay, now something really groovy happened with all of, my bad, good grief. Okay, you get the idea though, right? Scrawny cat, why won't you let me highlight you? Okay, you get the idea. Alrighty. Now, if I were to break these sentences and make them into the kinds of errors that you are going to identify for your quizzes this week, I would do something like this. All right, I just put two perfectly decent sentences together. Is this cool? Now, these are two sentences, but there's no punctuation here. When we slam together two sentences without punctuation, that's called a fused sentence. It's like using a blowtorch to fuse two pieces of metal together. We're putting things together that actually don't naturally fit together. They should stand alone. And you can say, well, all right, let's fix that. What if we put a comma there? Oh no, that's not quite it. A comma is like a piece of tape. It's not strong enough to hold two sentences together. You need a little something if you're going to do that. Now, the most logical repair is a period, right? Make two distinct sentences. Each one has a subject, each one has a predicate or a main verb. Each one has an actor, each one has a main action. Now, if you decide to put a comma there, you need to strengthen it. If you're going to do that, you take one of the fanboys. For, and, not, but, or, yet, so. You can do the comma and a conjunction. So we can say, Will Smith jumped over the bald Donald Trump and the cat jumped over the long beach, comma and a conjunction. If you want to show opposition, but Now, one thing happened, but on the other hand, right? Um, so these are ways in which we can make connections. Now, if you want to show a relationship between two independent sentences, but you don't want to use a conjunction, you can use a semicolon. Semicolon looks like a period on top of a comma, and what that tells the reader is grammatically, the sentence has stopped, but the thought is still continuing. The next sentence is going to connect an idea to this sentence. They're really closely related. So that semicolon says we're stopping, period, to finish the sentence grammatically, but the comma as part of that semicolon says, and we're adding a little information that makes this continue the thought. Now you would not use a semicolon and a conjunction. You would use a semicolon instead of a comma and a conjunction to make that stand solidly. Okay, now what if I break this all together? Let's use a prepositional phrase. Because, I can't highlight because it is not a subject. Okay, because Will Smith jumped above the Donald Trump, the cat jumped over the long beach. This is a causal relationship, but what it really is, grammatically speaking, is we have an independent clause, which is the full sentence, and a dependent clause, which is not a full sentence, but it adds a little something to the full sentence. Which part is the dependent clause, the part that's leaning up against the main sentence? If you say the first part, because Will Smith jumped above the bald Donald Trump, you would be correct, right? Because this happened, this other thing happened. Now you'll notice that there's a natural pause in the way we read this. Because Will Smith jumped above the bald Donald Trump, the cat jumped toward the long beach. Now to distinguish the introductory element, which is this, right? That dependent clause from the main sentence, now we need a comma. Now that does not make this a comma splice. Why doesn't it make it a comma splice? Because this part is not independent. It cannot stand alone, right? If we take away because, now it can stand alone. And that comma just turned this into a comma splice because we have two independent clauses hooked together with a piece of tape that's not strong enough to hold it. If we put that because back, or we could use a different prepositional word, we could say while, oops, not so many eyes, while Will Smith jumped, the cat jumped, okay, that works. Or after, any of these prepositional words will turn this into a dependent clause. Let's go look at those prepositions again. These words, right? Some of these won't work in the same way, but after, because, before. Before Will Smith jumped above the bald Donald Trump, the cat jumped toward the long beach. All of that works the same way. All right, what if I take this away and I put a period here? Are we good? We just talked about this. This is a dependent clause, and it's looking for that independent clause to modify, to lean up against, and it's not there. What do we do now? Well, this is what we call a fragment, because it wants to introduce a sentence, but it can't because the sentence isn't attached. We stop too soon, right? We add a comma, and we add that. Before Will Smith jumped above the bald Donald Trump, pause, the scrawny cat ate shiny ice cream. All right, now we have a sentence. This introduces, and this is the sentence. When we have that kind of introductory element that is a dependent clause introducing the main sentence, we need a comma. If we take that away, we have a fragment. If we took this away, we would have a fragment. Now, sometimes we see fragments in the wild for emphasis, which is weird. That can stand alone only because it's for emphasis, but that is not a complete sentence. Sometimes we introduce sentences with which, grammatically speaking, it's probably a dependent clause. It probably wants to modify an actual sentence. But we do it occasionally and intentionally only for emphasis. Like, Donald Trump jumped clumsily over the coffee mug again, right? That's for emphasis. That's not a sentence, right? Doesn't have a subject, doesn't even have a predicate. It's only there for emphasis. We can do that in casual writing. We can do that in narrative writing. In academic writing, we avoid fragments. We just do. So a fragment is either a prepositional phrase that's trying to introduce a main sentence, or it can be a thing that looks like a sentence but is missing either the subject or the main verb. A couple of things I want to point out here that are awesome about the way these students created sentences is that every single one of them is in the active voice, which is to say the actor is at the beginning of the sentence followed by the main action. That gives your writing energy and makes it interesting. You'll notice that there are no to-be verbs in our collection of verbs. When I asked students, come up with some verbs. They came up with action words. Well, the action words: run, jump, spin, dance, swim, eat, sleep, paint, write, sing, juggle, show movement in the world. There's something happening. But very often we use to-be verbs that are kind of vanilla verbs. To-be verbs would be to be, is, was, are, were. Those are bland verbs, and we have to use them if we make things make our sentences passive. So if we were to say, if we really wreck the sentence, what? Oops, sorry. This is grammatically correct. There's nothing wrong with it grammatically. The coffee mug was jumped over by the bald Donald Trump. Yeah, that works as a sentence. It has a subject. But now what's the subject? What's doing the action? Something that really shouldn't be doing the action. The coffee mug, right? The actor is now, the subject is the coffee mug. The actor is in the back seat. So when we do that, we make it passive, and it requires the to-be verb to change the verb tense. We want our sentences to be active and energetic. So we want to have Will Smith and the rabbit doing something together. These two sentences are interesting because they have a complex subject, because two things are working together. And so Will Smith and the rabbit are the subject of this sentence. They casually slept. They did it together beside a candle. Here we have a complex subject and a complex predicate. This cat and the rabbit together danced and sang toward Disneyland. All of this is to say that you have a lot of power to make your sentences vivid, exciting, interesting when you use nifty, concrete nouns that say exactly what you want. They're very specific. And you use active, vivid verbs that put your reader right into the action. When you do that, you grab your reader's attention and you make them care about your writing. They don't get bored, they don't get lost, they don't get confused, and you also know the boundaries of your sentences. You know where they start, you know when they stop, you know how to connect them so that your reader doesn't get lost and wonder what goes where. So I hope this helps a little bit as you think about your quizzes for this week about comma splices, fused sentences, and fragments. There are other tips and tools posted in this week's module that I think will even be more helpful and clear. Please do the readings. You can take the quizzes more than once. But the point isn't to ace the quizzes. The point is to get comfortable with sentence boundaries, with using active verbs and nifty nouns so that your writing is clear, not just in this semester, but for all of your writing in the future. So thanks for watching, and bye.